In the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. In our reading from the Revelation of John, we hear these words: "To the thirsty I will give water, as a gift from the spring of the water of life." Frank Troutman, Jr. was an iconic figure. He was larger than life. The Augusta Chronicle published a tribute to Frank last night. They said at the beginning of the tribute, anyone who ever met Frank Troutman Jr. never forgot Frank Troutman Jr. I think that's right. Nobody who ever met Frank forgot Frank. The tribute went on, as you might expect, to chronicle all of the wonderful deeds that Frank had done for Augusta. Frank had arrived to work for Castleberry Foods, and he later ran that company, modernizing and expanding its operations. Frank dedicated himself to giving life to the local Republican Party, credited by many for transforming Georgia into a two-party state. And if you look around things that were created in Augusta in the 60s and 70s, it's hard to find something that doesn't have Frank's name on it. Schools and clubs, things that were for the common good. It is said that you could not talk about community development or industrial growth or anything else in Augusta that really mattered without Frank Troutman's name being part of that conversation. Now, as you read these accomplishments, you might, as I did, begin to get an image of a big Greek statue. You know, like an athlete at the moment of victory looming over you. I want you to picture that statue for just a moment. And if you look at it hard, there's another part of Frank that might emerge. One that's not lording over you, but standing beside you. One that's not all that interested in his victory, but interested in your next experience. One that gives water to the thirsty as a gift from the spring of the water of life. Now, admittedly, getting water from Frank was not always comfortable. I mean, who wants a 6'2" All-State QB hiding under your bed? And if I thought there was a bear in my room, that might be the end of it all. And I might have just gone to the kitchen and finished him. But Frank's playfulness was about his love of life. Frank leapt into those moments because he wanted you to have that love of life too. Whether he was sharing a business opportunity, creating something for the betterment of the community, Frank had found that spring, and he wanted you to drink from it as well. Now, in the church, icon has another meaning. It doesn't mean something larger than life. It refers to liturgical art, a stylized piece of art that you use in prayer. It's a window to the divine, they say. My favorite icon was done by Andrei Rublev in the early 15th century in Russia. It depicts the three angels who came to visit Abraham and Sarah. They are sitting there depicted as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. It's called the Holy Trinity. To pray to this icon, you sit in front of it and imagine yourself in that scene. And when you do, you invariably feel an invitation to join them, an invitation to sit at the table, an invitation to participate and experience the intimate conversation that they are having. And this is how I felt around Frank. That same presence, inviting me into whatever experience he had just had, wanting me to taste and see whatever glorious thing he had just participated in himself. The last time I saw Frank, he was sitting quietly in his chair It wasn't clear he could respond at all, but he reached out and grabbed my hand and pulled it to him and held it. And I had the distinct feeling that there was something he wanted to show me. There was something he was excited about, he wanted to tell me about. There was something he had done that he wanted me to be able to do too. And he didn't need words for that. It was just his presence. Susan tells a story about a person who recently came up to Frank and asked Frank if he'd ever been to the Masters. Frank deadpanned his response. Yes, he said, I used to make the pimento cheese sandwiches there. And there's actually some truth to that. We are here to mourn our loss. We are here because someone who gave us water to drink from the spring of life is no longer among us. And I think the Augusta Chronicle got it right. No one who ever met Frank Troutman Jr. ever forgets Frank Troutman Jr. But we are also here to celebrate. And we can begin to smile as we imagine Frank sitting at the table of the great banquet that was there from the foundation of the earth, accepting the invitation to sit at that table, to participate in that intimate conversation. And as you imagine Frank there gazing on what is holy, being drawn to dedicate more and more of his energy to true love, knowing that's all that matters. You can also probably hear him order a pimento cheese sandwich. You can feel him thinking about the prank he's going to pull on the poor, unsuspecting soul seated next to him. But we can smile as we know that Frank is sitting at that table, growing in that conversation. There's only one thing that's left for Frank, only one thing that might not be perfect for him, that we are not all there with him. Because having found the spring of the water of life, you know what he really wants to do. He wants to give us some of it to drink. We have been blessed because we met Frank Troutman Jr., and we will never forget him. Amen.